Today we're making Dưa Muối. As with other cultures around the world, pickled foods is an important category in Vietnamese cuisine. The most recognizable internationally is probably the pickled carrots and radish that's often added in bánh mì. There are many others like pháo, dưa món, kiệu, etc. Dưa muối, also known as dưa cải muối or dưa cải chua, is another common preserve and is a must-have side dish for Tết, especially for a northern family. With so many different flavorful dishes on the table for Lunar New Year, these pickled mustard greens act as a palate cleanser and add balance to the meal. Cải bẹ xanh in Vietnamese, these greens are quite peppery and bitter when raw. As a kid, I would refuse to eat soups that my mom would make with these fresh greens, but would happily chow down on the pickled version. The pickling process gradually takes away the original bitterness, and you're left with a lovely sharp tanginess. My favorite part is definitely the thick stem pieces, which become super crunchy with just the right acidity. The process of making dưa muối is pretty simple, but it requires some time and patience. For the best final result, you need to prep the greens correctly and make a good balanced brine. It takes 3 to 5 days for the pickling to complete, so the best time to make dưa muối is about a week before your Tết dinner. Let's get started. For this recipe, you will need cải bẹ xanh, also known as gai choy or Chinese Asian mustard greens, green onions, shallot, bird-eye chili, salt, sugar, vinegar, water, a large glass jar, and a pickling weight or clean plastic food storage bag. The first step is to take your knife and gently cut at the base of each stem to remove it from the root end. Do not rinse the greens at this point because the goal of this first part is to remove moisture. Lay out the greens in a single layer on large trays or baking sheets. Fan out the leaves as much as you can. Now we'll set our trays in a sunny place, preferably outdoors, for at least 5 hours. This allows moisture inside the greens to evaporate, leaving behind more room for the brine to soak into them, which will lead to better flavors and a crunchier texture. It's been about 5 hours and we're losing sunlight, so we're gonna get the greens in. Wash them and let them dry while we prep the rest of the ingredients and the brine. We're going to sanitize our jar and pickling weight with boiling water to prevent contamination. Here you can see that I'm pouring boiling water into a bowl containing the pickling weight and into the jar. We're going to very carefully swirl the boiling water around the jar to sanitize it, then pour out the water. Now we'll let this sit to dry and cool down. In a large bowl, add water, salt, sugar, and vinegar. Whisk until everything has fully dissolved, then set aside. Discard the roots and cut green onions into 4 to 5 centimeter lengths. Peel shallots and cut into halves or thirds crosswise. Once the mustard greens are dry, we're going to cut them into bite-sized pieces. As you can see, what I like to do is first cut off the leafy parts on either side of the stem. Then, cut where the stem and leafy parts meet. Now you can cut everything up into pieces about 3 to 5 centimeters. I tend to cut thick stem pieces a bit smaller than leafy pieces. Any parts of the greens that are damaged or yellowing, we will want to discard to prevent them from spoiling our final product. A tip: separate your cut pieces into leaf and stem bits on a baking tray. I basically divide them up into sections on my tray in the same order that they were on the plant. Thicker stem pieces on one end, thinner pieces where the stem and leaf meet in the middle, and leafy pieces on the other end. This is because you'll want to add the stem pieces to the jar first and leaf pieces to the jar last, because it takes stem pieces longer to absorb the brine. Now to your jar, add a layer of the mustard greens, again stem pieces first, followed by some pieces of the green onions, shallots, and chilies. Repeat until everything has been added to the jar, pressing down as you go if needed. Pour the brine into the jar. Note, if you're using a Ziploc bag instead of a pickle weight, save a little bit of brine to fill the bag. Using a clean wooden spoon or spatula, pack the greens down tightly to remove air bubbles and ensure that everything is fully submerged in the brine. Add your pickling weight or fill your Ziploc bag with the remaining brine and place on top of the greens. Close up your jar. And that's it. We'll store this in a place with bright but indirect sunlight and good airflow. Your Dưa Muối should be ready in 3 to 5 days, depending on ambient temperature, as well as your preference for bitter/sourness. You should see the greens gradually turn yellow, the brine should remain clear and not become cloudy. See you in a few days. It looks like our Dưa Muối is ready, so let's have a taste to check. Perfect. This has reached my preferred level of acidity, so now I will store this in the fridge to stop the fermentation and prevent it from getting more sour. These stem bits are my favorite. They're so crunchy. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more Vietnamese and French recipes.